Oh, hey everybody, this is Mike Harrell from the Pork and Bean Show. And let's see, we're gonna get out of here. Oops. Oh, I'm completely lost. And today we have Ginny. How do you say your last name?
Joblonski.
Joblonski, Ginny Joblonski. And she is we had this whole thing set up, and then we had a whole hour of chaos here trying to figure out how to get this thing running. But I saw Jenny on a video, and she was talking about mind speaking to. She's an animal communicator and an all-around wizard, and she does healings for people and horses. And I just thought she was the most fantastic spokesperson for interspecies communication and peace on earth and how to heal. So welcome to the Pork and Beans, which is just the Bean Show, which is where it should have always been, just the Bean Show. Make fun of Brian. Brian has big issues today.
Yeah.
So, and we all, we can also, we have it set up for some questions. Well, we can actually get to the questions now, because I can read the questions and you can read the questions from the Pork and Bean Show, if you had some already picked out. So why don't you tell people about how you sort of developed into a professional animal communicator? That's a great story.
All righty. Well, the story's been told many, many times, Michael. I have to say that the quickest way to hear my story, if you don't want me to repeat it all today, is there are about 40 or 50 interviews on my website, but there's one that's just 30 minutes, and it's very it simply lays out 2 near-death experiences I had. And it's under IANS NDE Radio with Lee Whitting, Witting. And I just talk about a near-death experience I had when I was 3 months old, and then a near-death experience I had about a little over 10 years ago or so when I was 46. So I'm aging myself. And after, go ahead.
That's phenomenal, because the people who've had contact with ET and the people who've had contact with the Sasquatch people, there's a high number of them have had 1 or 2 near-death experiences, and something about that near-death experience awakens you and often brings up spiritual and or psychic abilities, and just generally shifts your whole energy around. I asked a question about that on the Pork and Bean Show group, and we had at that time about 600 people, and we got, I think it was 60 people said that they'd had some kind of a, so that was like 10% of the, that's a pretty high number for against the population.
It is, Michael. It is a theory, a very legitimate theory and understanding that many people that have developed profound abilities, but it's not required. I don't think some people are born like this, right?
Born like,
yeah. But the theory is that when we have a near-death experience or multiple near-death experiences, and we travel beyond the veil, we bring back with us different frequencies that may not necessarily be readily available to most people here. So you see, I'm qualifying it because I don't think any rules or all rules apply to everybody. We're all so unique, and we all have different experiences. We all have different soul agreements. We all carry different DNA. DNA not only from an ancestral perspective, but information within our DNA that pertains to our soul lineage or our soul experience, meaning contemporary, past, future, a lifetime experience. So really the sky's the limit, in my understanding, on Earth, that there's no one protocol or formula that determines who has, what ability available to them. But it is, I understand, quite common for people that have had near-death experiences or multiple near-death experiences to express abilities. And I've also had a couple of very interesting experiences that probably do qualify for this type of phenomenon. I just don't remember dying. For example, I fell off the back of a motorcycle on the freeway going about 90 or 95 miles an hour, round about like 1996. And what I can only describe as, at the time I described it as the invisible hand of God, came as I was turning around because I only had one hand left holding on to the driver of the motorcycle. And I had turned completely around, and I could see the car driving toward me where I was going to smash into the window, and I was falling off the seat, and my hand was slipping. And what I can only describe as the invisible hand of God came forward with such a force and propelled me forward and wrapped my right arm back around the driver of the motorcycle. So under hypnotic regression and within Akashic Records readings, I have been told that in that timeline where that happened, my soul decided to come back and I was put back in the body from that experience. So I don't know if they have a classification for that type of experience, but in another timeline.
Yeah, they do. Preston did, I think, researched this, and he found that there's just a whole pile of people who are saved from drowning, saved from car wrecks by some angelic or divine intervention. And that's probably one of the top phenomena of the dramatic paranormal interventions with humans.
I agree. I agree. Brian's trying to come in here, so we'll go ahead and admit him again.
See if he can make it. Poor Brian. Oh, look, he's got a picture this time. That's pretty good.
Good. And I'll go ahead and continue, and then we can edit out anything that Brian wants later. So a couple of years after that, I was driving a car in the fast lane. I think it was 1998. And I got a phone call, and I'm very, very sensitive to energies and other people's pain and suffering. I answered the phone when I was driving on the freeway in 1998 because A, everybody did at the time, and B, I was away from home and I was worried that there might be some issue with my children. So that's why I answered the phone. And my husband shared with me that he had to have a surgery, and the injury that he had, as he described it to me, I began to pass out, what is referred to medically as vasovaga. I began to black out. My vision got smaller and smaller and smaller until I felt myself drop the phone and collapse in my seat. And when I looked over, I was in the fast lane on the freeway. And when I looked over to the other lanes next to me, there were semi trucks in all of the lanes. And there is no way that I could have, given the car enough gas that it would have accelerated in front of these semi trucks that were traveling just as fast as I was on the freeway. It was LA after all. So my recollection of that experience, and again, I had Akashic Records readings and hypnotic regression and intuitives look into it. And my personal recollection now for me in this timeline is that I woke up in a McDonald's parking lot on the side, off the side of that freeway off ramp, when I have had intuitives or Akashic records readings, I have been shown, or I have been told by people who have had the visions of that experience, that they saw a hand reach down, what they described as an angelic hand, reach down and pick up my car and lift it off of the freeway and put it into the parking lot. My visceral memory within my body, my awareness of myself in the other timeline, was that not only did I die, but my car flipped in between the center divider and the semi truck, and I flipped into the oncoming traffic, and there was, in my memory, it was a 52 car pileup. So in another timeline, I did die. But for whatever reason, again, and I was not given very much information about this, not many of us in my experience are given too much advance notice about what our purpose is or what our specific mission is here, that my soul again chose to come back in and alter that experience for me and continue to live in this timeline.
So was that one of your official, what do you call it, near-death experience?
No.
Well, you've had two near-death experiences and two bizarre, grasp from the clutches of death experience.
Yeah. And on that one, my husband,
I think there's something funny about that.
on that one, my husband was about 100 miles away from me, and we were talking on the phone, and then the phone went dead. And so when I woke up again, in my experience, when I woke up, I looked for the phone. It was on the floor. I called my husband. He said about 15 or 20 minutes had passed. And I said, I cannot explain what just happened. All I can tell you is I passed out while I was driving. I think I need to go to the doctor. And so he drove 100 miles, picked me up, took me to the doctor, an emergency appointment. And the doctor said, well, you're fine now. You just blacked out. You have vasovaga. You're very sensitive. A lot of people who are energetically sensitive are just sensitive. And they said, well, you're in your 40s now. You can look forward to this getting worse as you age. And they just sent me home. And so he drove me 100 miles back to my car. And we speculated that evening and many days thereafter that there must be some important reason why I keep having these extraordinary experiences and I come out unscathed. And as a mother, my thought process was that I needed to continue raising my children. And we speculated that one or both of our children, who are quite lovely, would maybe do something remarkable or spectacular, and that I needed to be here to continue to be their mother. And, obviously, everybody loves their kids and thinks they're amazing. And I'm glad to be here for them. I had no idea at that point, though, Michael, I had never heard of a chakra or spirituality or self-help or alternative healing. So I never discussed these things with anybody except my husband.
Well, just for the record, for my 2 cents that I would have put in there is how this paranormal stuff works. And for that, I use the model of remote viewing. And remote viewing means that you can from your house, from wherever you are, you can connect through your consciousness any point in space and time, right? And the US Army did a big research project on this, and they did thousands of military guys, and every single one of them, when learning a protocol, could do it. So and then I heard this quote from one of, not a founder, but he was from one of the leaders of a big corporation that does remote viewing for the military and corporations and countries. And he was talking in his interview. He said, remote viewing is not remote, and it's not viewing. Right. And everybody has this. He said, remote viewing is a feeling inside. And I just wanted to throw this out there because that all paranormal activity is because we are extremely sensitive. We can feel and be and get information from any planet or any place on this planet at any time on this planet or any time in the universe. That's who we are. And to me, that's one of the core messages of how all of this stuff works. And not only are we that sensitive, but the trees are that sensitive, the horses are that sensitive, kids are that sensitive. The air and the water is also that sensitive. It's all connected, and we're connected to the whole thing. So I think that's important because there's still a big taboo against the woo, the strange stuff. And in fact, it's built into the fabric of who we are.
Well, I'll tell you, after my second near-death experience a decade ago, I was presented with paranormal experiences every moment of every day since, with no context, with no understanding, with nobody around me to support me. And I had a sense of
That's
no.
sad. That's sad. I wonder how many people are like that, have done that, and they're just withdraw and hide.
Well, and people, I think, live in different cultures, societies, different religious upbringings, which are potentially limiting to this conversation. And they are afraid to, or not confident enough to share with others. I rather naively, because prior to that, I had been very ill. I was pretty much bedridden for 9 years, and 2 or 3 years up to the 9 years, I was partially bedridden. And then after my near-death experience, again, partially bedridden because I needed to get off of the prescription opioids that contributed to my second near-death experience. But I was very open with everything. And I had such a visceral, a strength, a confidence within me, Michael, that I just knew it was all real. So I bet that all the people in, psychiatric institutions who are considered schizophrenic would say the same thing. It's real. They are hearing voices, or they are experiencing beings and other realities. My perception is that's real too. And I have a girlfriend who's a clinical psychologist who works in a facility, and we often talk about the things that are brought up, and I have explanation for just about everything, that she experiences at work. And we talk quite often about these types of things, but within her community, within her medical and psychiatric community, there are very few people who are open to the possibility of these discussions, because of course it would potentially invalidate 150 years of medical science and psychiatric research. So.
Yeah, that's hilarious, because I was thinking about that actually yesterday. I thought, here we had like the 1930s, you had Freud and Carl Jung, and they started this whole psychological psychoanalyst thing. And I looked at the history of it, and I thought, those guys, maybe not so Freud so much, but Carl Jung so much, but all those guys put together, they were into this analysis business, right? And I said that put the field of psychology back 100 years already. You know what I mean? Because you have shamans, and the first thing the shaman says to you is, "Who hurt you? What happened? What happened to you?" And there's no analysis to it. You don't have to get a PhD to get wounded. So I'm not really sure how you have to get a PhD in psychotherapy to get better. You just have to fix what happened to you. That's pretty much it. It's not rocket science.
But medical science doesn't see the way people like myself and other varieties of intuitive or psychic people see that. And you just hit the nail on the head, because when I came back from my second near-death experience, not only could I see interdimensionally, and I saw people's souls, and I saw people's wounded inner child, and I saw dead people and dead animals, and I could talk to the trees, but I could also hear the trauma in the nervous system. I could also hear what happened inside. So Dr. Gabor Mate talks about trauma not being what happens to us, but being what happens inside of us. And that's exactly what I was immediately given insight into, which is why now 10 years later, I am publicly sharing my experiences with people and working in this realm, because I could see it. And that's what compelled me to aggressively search for answers and explanation, and people who could understand and support the things I was seeing, sensing, feeling, and that I just knew. I didn't have to hear it. I didn't have to see it. It was a knowing that I didn't have to hear and interpret or see and interpret. It was an immediate knowing right through to my bones. And the only time I ever doubted myself is when people who maybe had been in the field for a decade or 30 years or 40 years or what have you, had been practicing a particular philosophy or a particular healing modality, would say to me, well, you're not correct based on my experience. But what I didn't understand was, because I had had multiple near-death experiences and other traumatic, transformative experiences, I was able to see, sense, and feel things that, to be honest, most people that I encountered could not, even if they had been doing this type of work for a long time. And many people are taught protocols. Many people are taught healing modalities that have served humanity well for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years. But we,
shamans and mystic healers.
yes, but in my perception, and I think one of the reasons why I've gone through what I've gone through is to be an example for humanity, for whoever wants to listen and experience my thoughts. And that is that we are evolving beyond many of those limiting ways of being, limiting ways of seeing. And we are turning on other strands of DNA. And I have had many very reputable, highly respected people tell me that when I came back, the reason I had a higher sense of knowing or psychic ability, it was because somehow my DNA had been turned on, because I had experienced a frequency that activated that higher strand of DNA. So my message is multi-layered. And part of my message is that I believe that everybody, to some degree, if we heal our hearts and we heal those wounds that are blocking that connection to our soul, our oversoul, to the inner chambers of our heart chakra, and we heal those wounds, we can all express these abilities and activate the higher strands, other strands of DNA, because it's our right, it's our destiny. We are evolving. And I think that my experience was to demonstrate to others, because I had gone on such a deep dive into my own trauma. I knew that I had trauma, and that's why I got sick, and that's why I had these experiences, that I had to heal myself. I couldn't just come out and say, I'm putting up a shingle, I'm a healer, I have psychic abilities. My soul kept taking me on a guided tour of past lives where I had let's say, misused my gifts and abilities, or been interfered with by other people who were misusing their gifts and abilities.
Could I slow you down a minute? I want to, because you have such texturally rich information that I want to go back and hit a couple of high spots.
Sure.
First one is when you talk about finding your heart and finding the blocks in your heart and staying in your heart. This is almost word for word what the Sasquatch teach people who are their friends. Find your heart, get in your heart, stay in your heart. It's all about the heart light meditation. We connect with our hearts. We're all one in our hearts. And so that's like a big Sasquatch, but it's also angelic, divine. The masters all say the same kind of a thing. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is trauma, right? In terms of, there's a name for it. It's called undischarged traumatic stress. That means the charge is held as undischarged traumatic stress. And undischarged traumatic stress, sometimes called bonded trauma, is very loud. Even though it's denied and even though it's in the subconscious, it is very loud. It becomes a controlling element in our life, and that causes illness, and that causes problems, repeating patterns, and all kinds of stuff. And being a psychic, it's important that, and this is how quantum hypnotic healing works, is they find that deepest trauma, and they, change the frequency of the trauma or the memory or the result of it. That's how almost all healing works, by finding that deepest discordant, hurtful, painful trauma, that stuff that happened in the past. And when you transform that or evolve it or vibrate it back to reality, then your systems can heal really quickly. I mean, it can happen very quickly because the amount of energy that takes to hold a trauma in place, to suppress a trauma, is really powerful, and it works its way through your body. It goes from your head to your heart, then through your heart and hits your emotional body, and then from the emotional body it goes out to your physical body. And that's why only 1% of all diseases are genetic. That means almost 99% of every disease you've ever heard of has adverse childhood experiences, traumatic experiences, past life experiences as the cause for fibromyalgia, cancer, heart disease, just the whole list of all the top diseases people have. So anyway, I just wanted to catch people up to like what we're talking about here, because you're just talking in the flow and it just goes right over their head. But this is what you're talking about. You're talking about a really big deal. And that same adverse,
Childhood experiences.
But the adverse, the undischarged traumatic stress, animals can get the same thing. They get undischarged traumatic stress, and they have issues, and they get health issues and body issues because of the same kind of thing. All animals can do that. Birds, horses, cows, goats, dogs, cats.
Yeah. Michael, I can see that you and I could probably talk for several hours today, and I want to, for the audience and for myself and for you, not that it's necessary, but I want to say that I recognize that everything that you are saying, for the most part, is very, very true. I do see it energetically, and I can explain that. The only thing that I would say that needs a little bit of qualification on what you said, the beautiful stream of consciousness you just shared, is that that's how all healing works. And I can say to you that I have studied many, many healing modalities, and I have been on a table for many, many different types and kinds of healers. And I can tell you that that is not how all healing works. Some protocol-based healing modalities do not necessarily work in alignment with the soul and the consciousness of the body and the energy field to address the priority of, as you were articulating, the memories that are trapped within the emotions and judgment of the experiences, which trap a certain amount of photons of light, life force energy. And when we witness and address the emotions and judgment attached to those experiences and release that, we are then freed up to reclaim our energy. And that, I would like to say, and I think you would like to think, is how all healing should work, right? Sometimes healing can look like, oh, I know what's wrong with you. I see a thing in your energy field that needs to be cleared. Let's go in and, surgically remove that, or let me balance your chakras and release some energy. And I have been at the effect of that type of healing many, many, many times. And by the time I walked to my car, or by the time I got home, those energies would return to me, because it wasn't necessarily the priority of my soul or my body or my consciousness that actually needed to be released. And there was something corresponding to it, or something on top of that needed to be released. But that particular practitioner could only see something specific because that's what they were trained to see, or that's how they were
Oh,
taught.
I agree 100%. And also you can walk away disempowered from those kind of situations. All pretty much all wounding happens from the outside in, and pretty much all healing happens from the inside out. And the more it's done from the inside out, the more empowered you are, the more sovereign you are, the more power, the more consciousness you have, and the more effective your healing is when you're doing it.
100%, 100%. And I talk a lot about thoughts and where do thoughts come from, and self-inquiry, self-awareness, and self-responsibility. And I often share with people that we have 3 chances, obviously variations on, the 3 chances, and it might not just be you have 5 minutes for each chance. You might have months and months to address each opportunity for healing, each chance. But that our clues or hints or prodding that there might be something wrong is when we begin to experience aberrant or unwanted or hurtful thoughts, shameful thoughts, judgmental thoughts, and they exist in the mental body, of course. And most of us, or some of us, will drink alcohol, smoke weed, go to the psychiatrist and get benzodiazepines or narcotics to deal with that, as opposed to go down a road of self-inquiry, self-reflection, self-analysis, and heal. So
You
then
want to know what the number of people is that are on psychoactive drugs, and psychosomatic illness, or binge drinkers? You know how many people in the United States that is?
It's a very large percentage.
66%. That means it's like 200 million people are on multiple psychoactive drugs for psychosomatic emotional issues and trauma. That's just a huge number.
Right. And so then the second opportunity, or the second phase of opportunity for self-inquiry, is when we begin to experience the emotion of it. And it begins to upset us. It begins to depress us. It begins to make us shy away from or withdraw from society, family, social situations, etc. And I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think you and I can both agree that this is a very sort of plain vanilla description of this process. And then when we begin to have that experience emotional imbalance, again, oftentimes self-medicate, drugs, alcohol, or go to the doctor and get medication rather than undertake a journey.
Or workaholic, or sex or power or sports or whatever. It's something that you're addicted to.
Yeah. Yes,
instead
100%.
of looking at your authentic healing or your
Right.
authentic pain.
Right. And then that third phase, opportunity, chance to heal before it becomes illness, as you talked about earlier, is when we begin to experience physical pain, or we sprain our ankle, or we break our leg, or goodness forbid, we have a car accident, or we fall down the stairs, or we keep experiencing chronic back pain or headaches or neck pain, and the chiropractor, the neurologist, nobody can explain what it is. And my experience in working with many people, including my own chronic pain, which led me to experience a near-death experience because my brain forgot to tell my lungs to breathe when I was on prescription opioids. I know a little bit about this level of pain, that if we don't inquire, we then again can get dependent on medication. So I just wanted to share that as
You're right over the target, that you have to have enough time to self-inquiry, to look and dwell on, like, what is going on? Something's not right.
right.
If you don't have that self-inquiry, then here's the problem. The problem is this stuff happens at such an early age, and we bifurcate from our authentic self and then the self that our parents wants us to be, society, teachers, and all that stuff. And that becomes who our true identity is. And this part of us that's still in pain is ignored. But it feels like us. There's nothing about the whole thing that doesn't feel like us, because where the memory goes is in the same place as the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I drive my car, the way you see it just feels like me, and my anxiety, well, that's just the way or my depression, well, that's just me, you know what I'm saying? And so we identify as just a smooth, continuous flow, this terrible results of feeling bad, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, schizophrenia, suicidal thoughts, and we still don't have enough separation from those toxic events to realize that they're not you at all.
Right. A lot of that can be a number of things. It can be a voice that belongs to an abusive parent, or an ancestor who experienced extraordinary trauma. It can be from someone that we had a very close interpersonal relationship in this life, but was emotionally or verbally abusive. It can be a voice of another person's ancestor or abuser if we somehow agreed to take on their suffering. And many people who describe themselves as empaths do not understand that they have agreed to take on other people's suffering, and that can be addressed. We can hear the thoughts of parasites in our stomach. Please go. Don't you want a chocolate chip cookie? You feel like some ice cream? How about pizza for dinner? That's not always your thought. It can very well be the thought of the parasites. And anyway, we could talk about this for a very long time, Michael. Would you like me to just continue to answer the initial question that you asked about how I began to speak with animals, or would you like to continue down this road?
No, like I said, when I watched a bunch of your videos that I could find on YouTube, and it just impressed me that you have such a connection to nature and to animals. And this is Pork and Beans is basically a Sasquatch slash paranormal woo, right? And we're talking about woo, and and we're trying to like bring the people who are interested in Sasquatch into the paranormal side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was one of the big sort of like mentors was this lady named Jan Weiss. I don't know if you ever heard of her. She was an animal communicator, I guess, in around 2012 to about 2015, and she died. But so she talked to elephants, she talked to dolphins, she talked to primates in Africa, and then sort of later on in her life, she started talking with the Sasquatch, and so that was really what got me awakened to the animal communicators are able to talk to Sasquatch people and talk to animals, and that is a fully functioning part of reality and needs to be taken into account whenever you're going to research it. Not only that, I have a big foot in the UFO community, and the ETs, they do psychic healing and they talk in mind speak and they give you visions and downloads and all this kind of stuff. And so do angels kind of people. So it's about the woo and the animal communicators. Here's the thing: uh, when I talked about remote viewing, there's dozens and dozens of remote viewing companies, and they make hundreds, if not millions of dollars a year. There are many, many good, high quality animal communicators, and they can make, over 100,000 a year. This is a business. This is a part of reality. This is grounded. This is real. It's not going away. There's more remote viewers coming on all the time. And there's people who teach how to communicate with horses and dogs and cats and stuff. They teach that. So there's a school. One school I heard about had it 5 years. It takes 5 years to learn how to do it from one school. So to me, this is like a real thing. It's not like the lady in the circus who throws the cards and reads the crystal ball. This is a business, and people are supporting themselves. And psychic healers are also a business. Psychic intuitives. So you represent a lot of that. You cover a lot of ground with the intuitive healer and an animal communicator. And this is the fundamental basis, a core basis of reality. And that's why I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. And I would like to respond a few different ways to what you just said, and then I will go back and answer your first question about how I came to this. I don't begrudge anybody earning a living doing this. I charge money for my service because I spent a lot of money and time, healing myself and perfecting, maybe that's not the right word, fine-tuning my abilities. One of the things that worries me about this industry is that it is a business, and a lot of people unfortunately develop an ability and go right out and start accepting money and charge exorbitant fees to perform their services that the average person could never afford. And on my journey, I struggled with this thought a lot. And I did have access to considerable savings. And so I did pay people $400, $500, $600, $800, $1,000 an hour to read for me, to supposedly do healings on me, which by the way, never worked, until I, in my own sovereignty, began to become more self-aware and take responsibility for my own healing. Almost none of the healings I was ever given ever worked, because I could see the energy and I knew that it would come back. One of my greatest concerns was that regular people, normal people, could never afford the level of healing and attention I was getting, and the classes and I was taking, and the workshops I was attending, and traveling to sacred sites and working with shaman, which is quite expensive. And then I want to say that if there is a program that takes you 5 years to graduate, I would certainly think that something like that would would be more legitimate than if you study with someone for 3 months and become certificated, right? My concern with respect to animal communication is that there is no requirement, and for many healing modalities as well, there is no requirement or any, there are very few modalities where one is required to be perceived as someone who actually can perform the task they're being certified in. Am I making sense? In
Yeah,
other
there's
words,
a lot of charlatans out there. You know, that's been going back from the time of Reiki, which was back in the 70s, where, you know, because I think I paid like $20 at the time to get a Reiki certificate, right? And it was it was like 2-hour course or something. And then there's millions of people now that have Reiki this and Reiki that, and you know, and it's dubious to how much it works. If the person has talent, it works. If they don't
Right.
have talent and they don't
right,
they're not in the right place, it doesn't work. And if they're uh, in a bad place and they're hoping that the Reiki will take care of their life, then they end up doing damage to other people. So
right.
there's a lot of that going on
Right.
out there.
Right. I mean, I don't doubt, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again every day, you know, we all have access to these abilities, but how clear are we? And are we relatively sure that we and our abilities and our energy are not being manipulated by outside forces, regressive or service to self forces? And most people I've ever met have a fair amount of entanglement or attachment with outside forces. And oftentimes, in my experience, I witnessed a lot of people who didn't necessarily invest a lot of time in self-inquiry and having other people work with them to ensure that the information they were bringing through was pure or even close to pure. And there's a man named Michael Tamora, who's a very respected teacher of clairvoyance. And he purports that most healers, intuitives, Akashic Records readers are bringing through information that is only 10% from their true soul or a true benevolent loving source. And when I found that out, I endeavored to work very hard to heal myself to the point where my percentage was much higher and continuing to get much higher than that, based not on just one person say so, but many, many people looking at me and working with me on my own healing in many different ways. So having said that, my primary concern is the amount of money, you know, that people charge for this. To me, it's quite distressing.
For intuitive healers and for animal communicators.
Both. There most animal communicators with any reputation charge from $360 an hour up to $600 an hour that I'm aware of. And from my perspective, where I sit and the experience I've had across the world and extensively across the US and Canada, there is no one that is worth, you know, that much money.
You would think that's kind of the same thing that's going on with the actual psychotherapists and counselors is some of these people can go to data analysis for 10 or 15 years and only thing they end up is knowing a lot about their issues, but they don't ever really heal from their issues. So
Yeah.
you know, I guess you can spend like you said, lots of money for for dubious results. I mean, and there's wizards out there. There's amazing miracle happeners. I'm not going to talk about them. There are people who are just not of this world when they're so powerful and good. So I'm not going to just deny everybody, but you know, there's a lot of charlatans going on out there in the medical profession and in the paranormal soul retrieval profession.
Right. Well, so again, going back to my near-death experience and bringing me into a space of awareness, of multidimensionality, of consciousness, that the body had a consciousness, that the energy field had a consciousness, that trees and plants and animals had consciousness, and that we could talk to people that had crossed over, and that there were other beings that were not living beings. That was all very real to me. And so first I endeavored to get myself off of prescription opioids, which was against medical advice, but I did that anyway.
That's a
Over,
heroic.
it was difficult, and I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but that was my journey, and that's what I chose. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster and painful. And as I was doing that, I was continuing to bring forward a tremendous amount of information. But my soul kept telling me, you are not ready to be a healer, even though every healer I went to told me, you're healing me more than I'm healing you, or you're bringing through such incredible information. You need, I think I know people that you can help. Let me refer my clients to you. And for several years, I said no, until finally enough people, convinced me that I did have information that was helpful to people, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I couldn't compare myself to people that have studied for decades and, knew so much more intellectually and from a.
Oh, that was like a little bit of the old bad self-image creeping in there, saying, no, you're not really, no matter how good you are, it's like, well, just comparison. Yeah, I know that one. I was a king of bad self-image.
Well, and I, valued education, right? Remember, I came from a place of, a different place. I didn't come from a spiritual place. I came from, how much education do you have? Who do you know? What is your experience? And so,
Did you write a book?
Exactly. Or, exactly. So in the beginning, as I was continuing on my journey, I never stopped. I focused on self-awareness, self-responsibility, self-reflection, self-inquiry every day, as well as having a lot of support from spiritual counselors and intuitives and clairvoyants and Akashic records readers, physical therapists, yogic masters, you name it, shaman. I went to Australia and worked with an Aboriginal woman. I went to
That must have been nice, but how did that work out?
That was really interesting. And it was, I think, the most helpful information I ever received was from an Aboriginal woman in Australia. I went to Uluru, and she lived in a town near there, which I forget the name of now. It was 2014 when I was there, so I apologize. But for years, I had been having readings and healers telling me things and talking at me and telling me they were healing me. And when I went to Australia, she explained to me that a lot of our lifetimes with karmic consequence were victim-victimizer relationships. And she showed me a lifetime that was unresolved, where I had judged myself and not forgiven myself, that was playing into another lifetime that was unresolved, where I was experiencing a lot of pain. And she was the one that first introduced me to the fact that information is information for information's sake. It is not necessarily evolution or contributing to self-awareness or empowerment, as you just mentioned earlier, Michael. And when I left there, the light bulb was officially on over my head. Because I had been told.
There you go. That's good, because that parallels a lot of stuff that I've learned along the way too.
Right.
I can say something incredibly horrible right now, and that is, all pain and suffering is an illusion. Not when you're in it, but once it's over, it is complete, total illusion. And that's kind of a hard thing to hold in your head, but because it's just all energy that got imprinted, and once it's gone, there's nothing left. And it's so much nothing left, you can't even find it anymore. It's like it never was. But on the other side of the coin, while you're in emotional turmoil, while you're in emotional pain, that is the only thing that is real. So there's two sides to that coin.
It's all consuming.
All consuming. Yeah. Consumes the quality of your life, that's for sure. I call it the snake and the snake bite. The thoughts and words that are imprinted along with the feeling is the snake. Like I say, I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy or I don't deserve. That's the snake. But the feeling is the regret, the held back, being intimidated by challenges or the results that you get in your life. If you're never really happy, if you're never really fulfilled, if you never really have joy, those are results based on the words. So there's the snake and the snake bite, and you need both kind of you need to look at both, and one is the thoughts and the other one is the feeling, and they both need to be addressed.
Right. Right.
So Ginny, I love the story, and I thought you were like actually talked to animals first, but you actually worked a lot with people first and then animals. Why don't you talk about that a little bit more?
Right. So as I continued on my own personal healing journey with no intention or concept that I would ever be any sort of clairvoyant or healer in any way, all the healers that I was engaging with were telling me that I was a healer and I was meant to be a healer. And my soul kept telling me that the definition of a healing is somebody that helps you remember you can heal yourself, not somebody that actually heals you. So I had quite a time trying to find people who thought that way. Everybody else just wanted to do the healing to me. So I really studied a lot of philosophy and comparative religious perspectives and healing modalities. And I got certified in a number of healing modalities, knowing I would never use them, but I wanted to know what they all said or what they all thought they knew and compare it to the experiences I was having. So I did start working with people, but we talked about how the sense of unworthiness or maybe not being good enough. I didn't charge a lot of money. I only charged, like, if somebody had $15 or $25, I would take it on a donation basis. But what happened was I was on the phone like 8, 10 or more hours a day with clients all over the world within months. And it got very overwhelming. And my own healing journey, this was back in like 2015, my own healing journey got put on the back burner. And within a few months, I realized that I'm not ready to just be doing this work. And I'm not ready to feel as if I can charge more money. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that do need this, but I needed to heal myself first. So I continued, I stepped way back and I continued on my own healing journey for another year or two. And I continued to travel and go to workshops and week-long retreats and 2-week-long retreats and meet very well-known people, and just did a lot of work on myself. And I started working with people again. And what happened was, when I was working with the people, animals would come in and I would say, I think there's a white cat in your energy field. Is this the cat that passed when you were young? Or I see a black poodle. It's a neighborhood dog that wants your attention. Or, do you have a horse with one eye? And shortly after that, I was meditating one day and I said to my team, what the heck? Why are all these animals bothering me? I'm trying to do this work and animals keep coming in and crashing my sessions. And that's when I was told what was really up with my journey. And this giant face of a horse, who's one of my primary guides, came in and said, don't you remember? We are the ones that brought you back from your last near-death experience. And we have guided you on your healing journey to all of these experiences. And we are now asking you to apply everything you learned about through healing yourself and about healing human trauma and the energy construct and the evolution of consciousness. We need you to apply it to animals because there are too few people in the world who go to this level, who talk about animals being sentient and sovereign beings, and who have gifts and abilities and unique soul purpose and potential. And many people refuse to admit or accept that animals too can be traumatized. And you just were mentioning that earlier, Michael, right? And I said, well, how will I do that? Nobody knows that I can talk to animals. I've never shared this. And they said, just hold on to your hat. Don't worry. So this was maybe 2016, 2017 time where I had been working with humans for a while. And one morning in the middle of the night, I was told, wake up, go to San Diego. And I said, I'm not going to San Diego. I don't know anybody in San Diego. I live in Arizona. Why would I go to San Diego? And I went back to sleep. About 3, 4 in the morning, get up, go to San Diego. No, I don't even know anybody. Why would I go there? I just thought somebody was messing with me, So about 5:30, wake up. You have to go to San Diego. I will never get back to sleep now. What the heck? And so I got up and got myself a cup of tea and turned on Facebook. And there was a very serious fire in San Diego County where 1,000 horses had been displaced and 100 severely injured were at a professional facility for veterinary care, and 900 were at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. So I said, I guess I'm going to San Diego. So I packed my suitcases, took a shower, and I was in the car by 7 or 7:30 driving to San Diego.
Wow.
And I didn't know anybody. And by the end of 2 weeks, there had been so many posts on Facebook and Instagram and private Facebook groups, and horse owners in that area that I had almost immediately 20 to 25 clients a week from that moment on as animal communication clients.
Wow. So it was just handed to you.
It was.
You did years and years and years of preparation, not even knowing. And then this whole thing was just handed to you. Talk
Right.
about a life plan,
Now.
And now you know.
But you get one guess what I did next. I went, oh no, not me. I need to go study with animal experts. So I did that a lot, and I got certified in a lot of, animal healing modalities, and many of them were very sort of introductory, but hey, I mean, going from somebody who just loves animals and never really thought they could be psychic or just knew Reiki or something, there's a lot of people who are benefiting from these classes. But when I went to the classes, I realized I already had all that, most of that knowledge and more, because I had been guided and taught by my soul and by my team. I was shown a lot of insight as to the cause of a lot of trauma, where a lot of modalities really don't address that. It's more protocol based and kinesthetic testing or using pendulums or stuff like that. So I had a really interesting experience myself with a horse that I was trying to rescue from the fire, that I was trying to work with to bring to my home. And there was a very serious accident due to some unfortunate negligence. And I always had been a horse person, and I had trained in, vaquero horsemanship, and my husband and I have owned, 17 equines over the years, but I didn't know a lot about the rescue community. I mean, I had been involved in a local rescue, and I had been involved actually in shutting one down and taking over the corporate structure and serving as the treasurer and dispersing the assets and, you know, all of that. But it was a very unique sort of isolated experience. I wasn't exposed on a national level to horse rescue or the plight of horses in general. So it was an interesting education. And what happened to this one particular horse that I absolutely fell in love with, because it was the most incredible human communicator horse I ever met, I decided that I would dedicate the next year of my life and donate a lot of money to rescues across the country. And I traveled across the country visiting people who owned horse rescues and were involved in horse rescue, and worked in person that first year with probably more than 200 to 250 traumatized horses in person, hands-on, face-to-face. And I got a lot of training in equine shiatsu massage.
And most of them were rescued, right? Most of them were rescued.
Rescued and traumatized. Yeah.
And you're working with the rescue nonprofit, whatever it was. What do you call them?
Well, yes, I have donated a considerable amount of time and money to working with rescues, some just by giving them money, and some by donating my animal communication services, and some by visiting them in New Jersey and Oklahoma and Montana. I mean, I've been all over the country, Canada, you know, working with horses in person, hands-on, probably close to 500 or 600 now, just in person, physically hands-on, working with horses, and many hundreds more over the telephone and from a distance.
Well, that's amazing.
So
what a giant you are.
I don't know about that.
Let me put it this way. You've been standing on the shoulders of giants long enough until your heads are equal.
Well, if you mean I got a leg up, yeah.
Yeah, but if you stand on the shoulders of giants, eventually you become a giant. That's the way it works.
And it's fascinating because I didn't realize how the journey, first with humans and with animals, has actually led me to working with what I initially knew as the Himalayan Yeti. And I never thought that I would ever work with Sasquatch or Yeti. I knew they existed. I had a girlfriend I went on a trip with in 2017 into the mountains and somewhere near here. And I was certain that I got a message from her soul lineage, which were Sasquatch, or what she called Yeti. And I gave her a message, and I thought that was really remarkable that I was able to channel a message from them for her. And it helped her to understand some experiences she had had in her lifetime. And she had been a flight attendant and traveled all over the world. And through that experience, we both came to understand that she was working with the Yeti / Sasquatch all over the world as she traveled to all of the continents. And so it was fascinating. But when that experience—
that is actually a common understanding that people have who are working with the Sasquatch people, is that the Sasquatch let them know that they somehow represent the Sasquatch people wherever they go. And I've heard that at least 20 times.
Well, I think that would be very true for my girlfriend, the one I'm talking about. And she has done a lot of work on herself, and retired from being a flight attendant and got a truck and a trailer and travels around the US just saying hi to people and smiling and spreading a frequency. And she is probably one of the most positive, kind, hopeful people I've ever met. And it was very clear back in 2017 that the message I gave to her was that she is an ambassador of type or of sorts, or a representative of, but she doesn't talk about it publicly. And quite frankly, I don't think I've ever told that story to anyone before either. But I certainly never expected to experience it again until recently. And I think that might be how you and I connected, how you reached out to me.
Oh yeah, I definitely felt the poke. I felt like I was poked, like, what do you want? Her, look at her, watch her, just talk to her. That was what it was, you know.
Right.
So I was like, and you know, all your things you're saying just line up with the Sasquatch people. And to me, it's like a total mystery, because Sasquatch love horses. I don't know if you know that.
No, I
There's
didn't.
there's this whole thing about Sasquatch people own horses, and then they'll go out to the barn and see that their horses' manes are braided.
Oh.
And the Sasquatch people will braid horses, and they play with horses and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of stories about Sasquatch and horses.
In the horse community, it's known as fairy braids. They think it's fairies doing it.
Well, it's pretty much, if they live anywhere near the woods
Right,
or near a creek, it's probably the Sasquatch that are doing it.
right,
So that's a mystery solved now.
right. So I guess it's probably relevant to share then my perception of how you and I are talking today from my side of it. So we all astral travel and work at night, and some of us remember what we do in the night and some of us don't. And I generally don't remember 80 to 90% of it. And I think that's purposeful. I think to some degree we are protected from having to have too much information, because it might make it hard for us to live our human everyday lives. It's not normal for me to be aware of what I'm doing in the astral. From time to time, I do have memories or visions that I remember when I wake up. A lot of them have to do with either teaching or learning, speaking to a lot of people, or working with a lot of people. And it seems to be very relevant to the evolution of humanity. And about, I want to say 5 or 6 months ago, I got poked, I got the nudge to change the language on my website from being an animal communicator to being an intuitive. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I was told to add the language that I'm dedicated to the evolution of interspecies consciousness on the planet. And I said, what does that mean? What is being dedicated to the consciousness of the evolution of interspecies consciousness even mean? They're like, don't worry, just write it down. So I did. And in the last 2 or 3 months, I have a girlfriend that I often speak to in the morning, 3-4 days a week. We say, hey, did you have a dream last night? What do you remember from last night? You know, how have you been? How's this, you know, ascension symptoms, and, you know, what's going on? And it really helps to have somebody that we can share our aches and pains and, you know, all the woo and weirdness with, right? And so she and I on one particular day said, have you been having feelings that we're working with the, and I started to say Sasquatch, and she said Yeti. And she said, yes. And she said, I think it's been happening to me for a couple of weeks. And I said, well, I've been having visions of these really large feet, but I'm not seeing, you know, a hair. I said, I think they're inching me in, they're showing me feet, and they're not like perfect feet. They're very large, and maybe the big toe is kind of crooked off to the side or something. And I said, but I just know there's something going on. And I think I'm in like Tibet or the mountains. And she goes, oh, it's the Himalayan Yeti. And So we both got just full body chills. And we asked, do we inquire? What do we do? And we were told, just let it evolve, just let it evolve. But she and I both are aware of many lifetimes in this, let's say, cycle of time, where we in prior incarnations have ascended in communities in the Far East, whether it be Hinduism or Buddhism, ascended to rainbow body, ascended to fourth dimension, what have you, which basically means shifting into that other frequency available on the planet. And she and I both have clear memory of being supported by the Himalayan Yeti in many of those experiences where in past lives where we ascended before. Of course, does that translate to this life? No, but it might speak to why we are then able to have this relationship in this life.
Once a friend, always a friend.
Right, right. So again, nothing in my conscious life, like I can't say, oh, here I have a souvenir, or there's my, I'm not bringing back souvenirs. I'm barely bringing back lucid, cognitive, conscious memories, but I knew something was happening. So my girlfriend's kind of like stay at home behind the scenes. And she tends to think, although I wish it was the other way around, she tends to think I'm the one that's maybe a little more out in front and she's supporting me from behind. I'm like, hey, I'm happy to let you, come and do these interviews. And she said, no, I'm just here to support you. So we would sort of inquire and meditate together and ask, is this something that is appropriate for our souls? Is this in alignment with our soul purpose? Is this really true? And we both got yes. And in a meditation about a month ago, and I don't keep a diary. If I kept a diary, it'd be 5 or 6 novels already. But I was asked by the Yeti if I would like to, I don't remember the language. It's been about a month. I think it was basically channel for them or give people messages for them, or it might have just been so simple, like just work with them. And, my first reaction to any inquiry like that is ask my soul. I'm on the other side of the veil. I shouldn't be making choices. My soul has a plan. So I meditated very deeply on it and I got that, yes, it was appropriate. So that night, or sometime, it wasn't that night, it was several weeks later, which would have been a couple of weeks ago, I was receiving some type of refinement of my energy. And I texted my friend, it was 2 a.m. And I said, please tell me what's happening to me is benevolent. Is it the Yeti doing something to my frequency so that their very high frequency will be able to communicate with me? Because I'm on Earth, right? Or I'm on the dense Earth anyway. And she got yes. So I woke up in the morning and I was vibrating and my animals were looking at me funny and my husband and my dog were looking at me funny. And I said, something is really different about me. And within a couple of days,
you got an energy upgrade right there.
And within a couple of days, Michael, is when you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So after you reached out to me, Brian reached out to me. And I didn't know that Brian was going to reach out to me. And the night before, and I think it was like last Saturday morning. So the night before, again, I woke up in the morning and I said, I must have been running a marathon. I just feel like I was hit by a truck. I don't know what I was doing in the night, but I'm exhausted. And Brian texts me at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning and says, hey, you want to jump on a call? And I'm like, I'm in my pajamas, so I hope we don't record it, but yes, I will. And we got on a call by like 7 or 7, maybe 7:30 or 8. And I just barely, brushed my teeth and threw some clothes on. And within an hour, I was channeling a Yeti. And I said to him, please excuse me for being so graphic, but this might actually make me physically sick. I might have to run and excuse myself because this vibration is so high. And to my knowledge,
Oh man, I'm glad to hear you say that because people do not know how high they are. They are high beings.
yeah, to my knowledge, I had never in my conscious awareness in my physical body channeled what I believe to be a sixth dimensional being that directly. Like it was standing next to me here in this, which is my guest room in my house.
Oh, that's nice. That's
And
nice.
I
You
said,
felt his presence in the room with you. I used to feel that all the time. For 2 years, it was every day.
Such a wave of energy came through me that I went like that. It was visceral. It was visceral. And I said,
yeah.
Please excuse me for being so graphic, but I might have to excuse myself to the bathroom because my energy frequency is rapidly rising. And he said, oh yeah, no problem. I was quite embarrassed by that.
Brian gets that every day.
Yeah.
Every day he gets that. That's why he does the show, because every time he gets on the show, that Sasquatch come down and boost him up. And whenever something cool is being said, they'll give him a little, I get the chills and stuff. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow, fantastic story. I had no idea. I said, how could she be doing all this stuff on the Sasquatch, not letting her, contacting her somehow? It turns out that you were being touched and invisible. And that goes along with what one of my feelings is that you may not have to get a lot of mind speak, but they'll be there, invisible, present, and let you know somehow that they're around. They let you know, and So what a great story. Keep going.
Well, I think Brian and I ended up being on the phone for like 2 hours, and I needed water, and he kept talking, and he was asking me questions as I was like, and he goes, I'm sorry, but let me just ask you one more question. And I was exhausted, and I didn't have a cup of water in front of me, and I just felt so dehydrated. And that was a lot. We were sharing information back
2 hours. With Brian, I feel sorry for you.
And I did not expect it. And so I was exhausted. I had to go take a shower. I had to drink several glasses of water, take some electrolytes, some magnesium, and get in a salt bath and go and put my feet on the earth. It was really.
And Brian's famous for that. One more question. I want more. He's like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah. And I was really trying to be as pleasant as I could. And I guess right at the end, I just finally was like, okay, one more question, when I just so desperately wanted to drink a glass of water. But so that's been about 2 weeks now. And so, yeah, I can definitely feel when they're around, but I have every day since then, frequency being elevated. And I don't know what the future holds or what this might bring, but I do sense that one of my jobs might be that as clients come to me, I might be giving messages from the Yeti to people who have Yeti as guides or part of their soul.
Well, that's a huge deal. There's so many people who are friends, or they want to be friends, or they love Sasquatch. They love the Yeti people, the Sasquatch people. There's hundreds of names for them, but maybe they're not mature enough spiritually to really connect with their hearts enough. But that it's the biggest thing in their life. And for them to get any kind of a word or any kind of a connection from a psychic, it's just a big deal. It's a huge deal. I know there was a lady, Kathleen Odom, and she would do readings for people for at like $200 a shot. But she was like a clear channel, so she would take their messages down, and then she would go. Right? She was gone. And then she would like do this automatic writing thing, and she was really accurate. But she was making her living off of helping people psychically connect to. And there's other people too. There's a few other people out there who are helping people connect to the Sasquatch family. Yeah, so that's a big deal.
Right.
And like, this thing about, like I said, I have a big foot in a big presence in the ET community. There's been around 7 million people have been contacted we're pretty sure of. 7 million people since the 1950s and 60s been contacted by the UFO people and done healing and upgraded and everything. But what's happening now? And then that was like a real gradual thing. And remember, they used to think about how evil the ETs were, and they're going to eat you, and invasion of the earth, and all that invasion of the body snatchers, and all that kind of stuff that was going on. Well, that's what's going on right now with the Sasquatch community. Oh, they're evil. They're going to eat you. They're Nephilim. They're demons. Right. And I'm saying, God, if you guys knew what a high person was, you wouldn't be saying that. But right now, my feeling is that because of the view counts on YouTube of all the different people in the channels, the Sasquatch are working directly with around 4 million people.
Wow.
They are completely engaged with this thing. And again, so it's like you got the ET working with people, uplifting them, giving them information, helping their psychic abilities, the near-death experience, people having those kind of things. Sasquatch over here, it's all about uplifting and the awakening. You know what I mean? They're all in on it big time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really wonderful and really incredible. And the things you're saying about their messages, it's very congruous with the messages that I don't want to speak out of school, but the questions that Brian was asking, the information that I channeled last Saturday, I think it was Saturday morning or Sunday, it's very congruous with the things that they were saying. It was just remarkable. Would you like to, I do have clients this afternoon, and we did have some chaos and confusion this morning and trouble with internet and stuff. Would you like to do at a separate time when Brian can be live, maybe do the questions and maybe the next couple
Oh
of
yeah,
days?
today is complete chaos. To me, I think it was just a gift for me, so because I can like talk to you one-on-one because I'm greedy. Yeah, sure. I mean, this doesn't have to go on forever, and this is just a little a gift for the people who are expecting to see you. Had a lot of people expecting to see you, and ask you questions. You can actually do readings. Would it be better if we had one or two guests on, and you could do a reading from inside Zoom, or is it is better if you just try to answer questions from a list of questions?
I'm able to do the readings or channeling or messages from just questions on Facebook. So if we were
So
to
you
get
would
together,
end up hooking up with either their intuition or with their Sasquatch friend, either one, right?
either their soul or their Sasquatch guide, yes. And there were some fascinating questions on the Facebook group. So maybe when Brian's system is up and running in the next few days, we can regroup and we can do a fun question and answer channeling session, and we'll both be fresh, and that will probably be more energetically supportive for all of us.
Yeah. Did by any chance Brian's Sasquatch friends, was he the one, Sasquatch mentor? Was he the one you were talking to when you and Brian were talking?
Oh, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very, very tall, very large.
He's 12 feet tall.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, maybe I should tell you about if you're feeling antsy, you're ready to go. So maybe we'll wind it down. But man, what a fun story. The Sasquatch have been right alongside humans for like 5 epochs, right? From the time of the land of Pan to the time of Lemuria to the time of Atlantis and the time of Egypt, and now, been going on a long time. So they always seem to be able to lift us up. To me, they showed me that they were the teachers of the shamans, and they were the teachers of the gurus. In India, they're the ones who teach the gurus, because the gurus go up in the sacred mountain, and then
Yeah.
what do?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is my memory of my experience in other lifetimes when I have ascended in other lifetimes and then come back on a bodhisattva vow several times. Several times I volunteered. So,
Yeah.
and it was made very clear.
Make it around. You must come back and help humanity.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't time for the entire planetary transcendence or evolution yet. So here we are. Here we are.
But
We're all
here we are, and
fine
we're in the
humans.
best shape yet. I have hope. That's all. Let's end it with you just telling everybody a little bit of a vision of the future. What do you see is going on in the future for humanity and the animals?
Well, my vision is not with respect to all of humanity. I have to be honest. My visions and the things I've been shown have to do with those of us who are already awake and healing and fine-tuning our ability. So it's a little bit limited. My understanding is there are about 200 million souls that came from the past, from the future, to incarnate now, which is technically the past, to help, let's say, right the ship and bring humanity into the most optimal timeline for the evolution of humanity into the Homo luminous being through the fourth density of Earth, and then the fifth density, eventually the fifth density of Earth, where there potentially will be a greater time span or pause in that density for the most number of souls to evolve. And what I have been shown is many of those 200 million, of course, didn't necessarily wake up or maybe don't feel comfortable yet coming forward or being necessarily in service due to life circumstances, or we don't know what. A lot of us had a lot of trauma. I certainly did. But I do see a few 100,000 of us working together very closely. And during what people call the shift, I see us receiving outside of the normal time of humanity, being taken into a space where where our healing is somewhat accelerated, and where we receive healing to the point where we can express abilities like the gurus and the masters in India, which is the bilocation, the materialization, dematerialization, what they call in the Far East, the cities, manifesting the cities of the siddhas, the shaman. Mm-hmm. And so I see many of us having some based on the choices we've made so far, receiving some accelerated healing and then being brought back as if we were only gone, a day or two or three, but it being potentially equivalent to our, year or two, where we are taught and we are helped to remember, right? And heal so that we can then come back and be put right back into our experience and, excuse me, be of greater service to those who would come to us during this time, because many, many, many more people will be by default having experiencing the astral realm beings, people that have crossed over, entities for good or bad, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions and are going to be somewhat maybe frightened or confused. And so there will be a great number of us who will support. Of course, the potential to be uplifted and awakened and, activated or healed exists for everybody, I'm not trying to limit anybody's ability by saying that I do see, a smaller number than all of humanity, going into a certain place. But that is what I see. Does that resonate in any way with your?
I think we're on the mend, and I think we're winning, and that's as far as I get.
Yeah.
I wish I had an image of a new world or something, but I just think for me, it's going to be a gradual progression to better and better, and more heart-centered, and all that kind of stuff.
And
we're actually moving really, 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 really fast.
yeah, I agree. I'm watching my clients heal things that took me weeks, months, or years in just one session or a couple of sessions now. Another thing I would like to say that I do see about the future is an absolute heightened telepathic ability. Many people expressing our psychic senses, communicating.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And that's why we're talking about the woo. And
Yeah.
that's why the Sasquatch are showing themselves more about the woo, and why the horses want to talk to people. And I had a nice conversation with a rock. It was an amazing conversation.
Yes. Communicating, people telepathically, communicating with animals more, living in balance, or what I call right relationship with nature. Millions and millions of people coming forward with tremendously helpful ideas about how to shift agriculture and, sustainable or free energy, and just completely changing the way we live and work and perceive our culture and our responsibility to one another as humans. But in particular, very specifically, I see a very heightened telepathic awareness and sensibility and remembering of the infinite nature, the truth of who we are, where we come from, our past lives in particular, and having more and more open, loving, compassionate communication along those lines. My throat is being nudged here. So
Okay, let's call it a quits then.
Well, I'm wondering if somebody wants to give a message. Let me have a drink here and we'll see if somebody wants
yes. Yeah, if somebody if you have a message coming in for anybody, from anybody, I guess it's from, we can't say from whoever wants to speak can speak, right? That's the way it works.
Okay, so my voice is fine now, right? It's a message for Brian, and it's saying that they messed with his computer system on purpose today to give you and I an opportunity to talk about maybe some things that might not have, lit his fire necessarily, and that everything's going to be fine with his computer, and we're going to regroup and answer questions in the next few days, if that works. So that's the message for Brian, and they're saying sorry about the confusion.
Well, that's great. I'm happy with that. Brian's a pretty big guy. He can handle it. So that's sweet. That's what a sweet story. So anyway, thanks for coming on Pork and Beans, and I definitely would like to have you back ASAP, and we'll just see how this thing evolves, because I think that the Yeti world, the Bigfoot world, and just the people who need to get out of the rational material reductionism world. They need to get out of that, be exposed to it. People really don't know that the richest part of life is pretty much the paranormal part. Love is a paranormal experience. You know what I mean? You feel love for no reason. It's just there, right? So that's pretty much what paranormal is. Yeah. So anyway, Thanks for
That-
coming on and good job. You covered a lot of ground.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye.